to ensure that they're working at the right level. What got you here will not get you there. And we have to understand that the roles and the jobs that we held in the past, the skills and the things that we've done to get to where we are today may not be what get you to that next level where you're going.
Hey, it's the Leadership Loan Podcast. I'm Jason McClaren.
And I'm Jason Holden. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer at Joni and Friends.
Yeah, definitely. Jason, thanks for coming on the show today.
It's great being here.
And we were talking earlier before we started recording. It's going to get a little difficult with all the Jasons in the room, but we'll make it work, and hopefully our editing team can keep up. But yeah. So Jason is a retired Chief Master Chief of the Navy. So we'll get into that. So Jason, tell us about what led you to join the military and start your career there.
Yeah, so I joined the military back in the late 90s. And, I grew up in a home that was surrounded by military service, whether it was teachers, mentors, or even my stepfather was a Master Chief in the Navy. So those all led to me wanting to serve my country. And that's what led me in the late 90s to join the Navy and serve in the same regional aspect of job as my father, but a different trade.
Yeah, definitely. I was kind of in the same boat. My dad was in the military, and so I kind of just went and did the same thing. I was enlisted, and I only did 7 years, but yeah, similar boat. So you're retired, and then now you're working at Joni and Friends. Can you tell us about that?
Correct. In 2018, I retired from the Navy after 20 years and was looking just to continue to serve in a different way. And Joni and Friends as a Christian ministry was where I retired at. And I went over there to take a role as a director of one of their international programs, overseeing logistics and missionary travel, security, those types of things.
And was that logistics stuff missionary, or obviously in the military you weren't doing missionary work, but was logistics part of your military career?
Yeah, as I rose through the ranks in my military career, you start to lead more than you do your profession, right? And as a leader of construction projects around the world, I had teams spread across multiple countries that you were leading. You were leading them to make sure that they had the tools, materials, and equipment to do the job that they were sent into these countries to do. And that transitioned very well into the role I had taken at Joni and Friends.
And you guys focus mainly on people with disabilities?
Correct. Joni and Friends is a Christian ministry that shares the gospel, but it focuses on the disability community because they are often the ones that are forgot about, left in back bedrooms. Our founder was a 17-year-old that dove off a floating platform, broke her neck, became a quadriplegic, and grew this ministry from what it was many years ago to what it is today, serving people with disabilities around the world.
And I think I've done some stuff with Ukraine.
Correct. A couple of years ago, and during the kickoff of the Ukraine-Russia war, people with disabilities were left behind in the cities that were being bombed and attacked. As people evacuate or the power shuts off, people with disabilities can't go down elevators. They can't self-mobilize. They really rely on their community. And a lot of times in combat, the community leaves and takes care of themselves. So we Joni and Friends mobilized a team to go into these cities and evacuate people with disabilities out of first those cities into the western side of Ukraine, but ultimately to replace them in countries around the Ukraine area.
Yeah, I think as Go Heroes, we runs this podcast. We have an emergency preparedness division, and we always are talking about that. Preparing for your disabled family members or people that cannot evacuate, even here in the States. You have a tornado or a flood. You need to have more plans for those people because they can't move as fast or they can't move at all. So you need to be more prepared for those sorts of things. So I imagine doing it across the sea or overseas is even more difficult.
Yeah, really setting up, breathing apparatuses, medical requirements. People think disability, they usually think of a person in a wheelchair or a person on crutches that can mobilize somewhat, but they don't think of the person laying in a hospital bed that really relies on other people to feed them and move them and really machines to breathe for them in some cases. So those are the most complicated of how do you move them safely. You can't just put them in a 2-passenger seat car. You have to have different equipment, different vehicles, and then where do you put them for the long term? You can't just take them into a regular hotel room. You can't just take them into a regular building. You got to have certain facilities available.
Yeah, they've got to be, backup power and all that sorts of thing. Yeah, no, it's especially here in East Texas, we get thunderstorms all the time, knock out the power, and you have to plan for that and have backup power. I think the winter storm we had a couple years ago, people were out for 5 or 6 days, so even non-disabled people were having problems with that. So
Yeah,
you got to be prepared.
absolutely.
So I know your military background helped you get this position you're in now. So what are some of the leadership challenges you faced over there at Joni and Friends? Your military career helped you with.
Yeah, I think the normal leadership challenges that everyone faces of building a culture, building a team of teams, growing your leadership, consistency, uh, building those high performing teams, challenge coaching, confronting leaders that work for you and around you. How do you elevate your power of influence to the departments that don't work directly for you? All these are skills that I learned in the military through leadership development or just, on the job training that I was able to apply at Joni and Friends in the ministry that we work at.
Yeah, you made a good point there. I think those that serve in the military or other leadership positions, you have those classroom-based trainings where you learn leadership skills through classroom courses or workshops or whatever it is, and then you have the basically on the job training, things you can't really teach in a classroom. I know there's lots of certifications and even degrees in leadership, but there's some things you just have to get your hands dirty and be boots on the ground and be out there with your crew in the field and then seeing what they're doing and kind of learning those situational leadership traits that people pick up in their normal day to day life.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. I think I've learned more in the military from failures than I ever did in a classroom or through a training, because I think it's true what they say that rough seas make good sailors. And there was definitely some rough seas within my career. As much as I tried to be the amazing leader that I was trained and equipped to be, the challenges and adversity is what really shaped me into the leader I am today.
And of course, being both of us former military and I was a firefighter, we always say practice like you play. So when we did trainings, that's when we learned how to do things before the real thing happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why a lot of leaders come up the ranks. You don't get a lot of people that, graduate college and go straight into a true leadership position. They may go into a, mid-level management type role or something, but you don't see a lot of people who graduate college and then they're a COO or CEO of something, because companies know this, that you just have to learn. You have to get those 5, 10 years under your belt before you're in a position to lead those type of people and make those types of decisions. And I think we've seen that in different things throughout the country nowadays with different things going on in politics and that sort of thing. You have to have some skin in the game and some time under your belt before you start making those decisions.
That's true. Even in my role as I transitioned from the military, I knew I had a lot of experience of leadership and both skill sets. And when I came to Joni and Friends in 2018, I took a director role. And I applied those same leadership and skill sets, and that's what helped me thrive within a very competitive environment. And today, that's why I'm their chief operating officer, because I was able to apply all those skills and aspects of my military career into the career I'm in now.
Yeah, and I've been at organizations, like I said, and like you said, most places try to build, promote from within when you get in those executive roles. Um, they'll bring in somebody like a director level and then test them out for a couple of years and start grooming them to take that next seat or whatever they're doing. The only time you usually see a outsider come in is when they're doing some change management and they want to totally flip the game and change the whole organization. So yeah, that's a good piece of advice for people looking for positions. If you're applying for a COO position at a company, you're probably not going to get it unless you work there already. Not to say not to try, but yeah, they usually have somebody in mind for those positions that they're grooming and they've been working on for a couple of years.
Yeah, and that's a great aspect you called out, Jason, is I see a lot of my brothers and sisters from the military as they transition wanting that equal role that they were serving in the military. They don't understand it's okay to take a step down, get in there and prove yourself with the company. And in a year or two, if you are truly that good at what you're doing and you're that good of a leader, you'll easily rise up, especially when the pool of leaders you're competing against don't have the experience, knowledge, and training that the military really does offer many of their great leaders.
Yeah, and that's similar. What I did when I got out of the military, I had to go into a lower role. I thought it was a lower role at the time. I was an E5 and I went to a manager title role, but it was more tactical based role. And then, like you said, I showed what I could do, and I was there for 2 years, I think, and a assistant director position open. They, asked me to apply for that. And those are usually the ones you get. Like your leadership will say, "Hey, you should apply for this," because they know you're ready to go. And then of course that propelled me into more senior roles and director level roles as I moved up the ladder. So yeah, definitely good takeaways there.
Yeah, that's good.
Jason, if you were out in the field and one of your new leaders or somebody moving into leadership roles asking you for a piece of advice, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to ensure that they're working at the right level. What got you here will not get you there. And we have to understand that the roles and the jobs that we held in the past, the skills and the things that we've done to get to where we are today may not be what get you to that next level where you're going. So just realize that and continue to always educate yourself. And it's something I share with even my friends and family today is instead of scrolling on Instagram and scrolling, doom scrolling or whatever you do, educate yourself, gain skills, use that time wisely, because that's how you're going to outpace your competitors in a business world in general.
Yeah, in business and personal, I think another thing I do with the Go Heroes is we do business mentoring. People trying to start a business or grow a business, and you'll talk to them. And some of them I've gone to do like the initial meeting, and they're sitting there on scrolling while we're at the coffee meeting. I'm like, we probably need to talk about this, and this is not a successful transition.
Yeah. So how do you read books, listen to podcasts like the Leadership Loading podcast to gain more knowledge and wisdom and just experience that you can take into the next role?
Yeah, definitely. Podcast is great. If you don't have audiobook subscriptions, I listen to podcasts every time I'm driving from one meeting to the next. I'm listening to a podcast, learning while I'm driving, or a book if I can, and then of course reading books. And we're actually going to put a book list on our website for future leaders, so that'd be good to go.
That's good.
Jason, how can people get a hold of you or Joni and Friends if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so joniandfriends.org is the easiest pathway to access all the programs and services that Joni and Friends has. I would like to encourage that we do have warrior programming. Warriors have disabilities just like everybody else. And, we have great programs that serve not only the warrior, but their caregivers, their families, that we do them in 13 different locations around the United States. We call them our warrior getaways. So I would just encourage, if you're looking for something or if you just want to come and serve, you want to come alongside people that just love to serve the military. These are great programs for volunteer opportunities. So joniandfriends.org is the best way to get a hold of us and apply and see what you can bring your skills to.
Yeah, I like that, bringing your skills to nonprofits. We didn't even bring that up, but yeah, I did Civil Air Patrol right after I got out of the Air Force. And for those that don't know, Civil Air Patrol is kind of like the Air Force version of Boy Scouts, kind of. And so you have cadets that are, I believe, 12 to 18, and then adults that help mentor the cadets. And they wear civilianized uniforms and that sort of thing. But yeah, that helped me, build up some of my safety skills and my leadership skills to get my next career. So yeah, definitely reach out to nonprofits and such as Joni and Friends and see what you can do to help them out and then also build your skills.
That's good. Yeah, we have a lot of other international programs as well that some of my veteran volunteers that started in our Warrior Getaway are now serving internationally because they're gaining even more skills that they're being able to take back to their workplace or even to future opportunities.
Jason, thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading podcast, a Go Heroes production. If you'd like to support Go Heroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading podcast. Leadership inspired.